Olá, jovens! Eu sou o Gabs Ferreira. Sejam muito bem-vindos a essa entrevista hoje aqui com o CTO da Bluesky, Paul Frazee. Eu estou muito feliz de ver tanta gente aqui no meu canal. Muito obrigado a todos vocês que estão aqui hoje. E para quem não me conhece, como já disse, eu sou o Gabs, eu sou criador de conteúdo de tecnologia desde 2014. Faço vídeo, blog, podcast. Então já se inscreve aí no canal quem não me conhece. Dá uma olhada no meu podcast depois, tem a newsletter, tem tudo, mas vamos para o papo de hoje. A gente vai conversar hoje aqui com o Paul Frazee, que é CTO lá da Bluesky, essa rede social que tem ganhado nosso coração e aparentemente ele é o pai de muita gente aqui. Eu queria dizer para vocês que essa entrevista vai ser em inglês, né? Não tem como eu, nesse momento, colocar a legenda, mas semana que vem eu vou passar essa entrevista para um editor, a gente vai colocar legendas e teremos a entrevista legendada em português na quarta-feira que vem aqui no canal, tá? Então, se você não entende inglês, fica aí mesmo assim, tá? Pratica um pouquinho e semana que vem você assiste a versão completa com legendas e tudo mais. Gente, então vamos lá. Let's switch to English now and let's call here the man of the moment, the father of all Brazilians, Paul Frazee.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, I'm fine, man. How are you?
Doing good, doing good.
Yeah. So first of all, before talking about blue sky tech and other things, the things that I wanna ask you, tell us a little bit about you, man. Where are you from? What did you study, and how did you end up in blue sky?
All right, yeah, sure. So, yeah, let's see. I actually was born in, well, I was born in Minnesota technically, but I grew up in Texas, in West Texas, and kind of had a weird path in my career. I actually went to school for theater instead of tech, which,
Really?
yeah, go figure.
Interesting.
I liked tech when I was growing up, right? Like I started like programming, like making mods for Half-Life when I was like first getting started, and so I learned how to do that, but then wasn't really sure that I wanted to get into tech for a long time until I got to my 20s, right? And got back into programming, realized that there's a lot that you can do that's actually pretty exciting. Like I didn't know anything about startups whenever I was young, and so I was not that excited about like working a normal job. But then once I found out, oh, you could start your own companies, that started to get me really excited. And then somewhere around 10 years ago, I started to get into this idea of like new internet technologies, right? Like
Yeah.
this whole decentralized internet stuff. And so, yeah, I've been doing that. Actually, now it's probably more like 12 years if I include the time that I've been spending on Bluesky. So I did that for a long time. That eventually found me here. And here I am, working on this.
When did you join Blue Sky?
Right at the beginning. So let's get my timeline right. I think it was 2022, like right at the beginning of 2022 is when the company started. And I was fortunate enough to get pulled in right at the start. So I've been there since the beginning.
So, and how Blue Sky started? Who founded it? Were you one of the founders?
I'm an original engineer. I'm not one of the founders, right? The Jay is the founder of the company, but the whole project got started. Kind of a funny long history there too. Jack Dorsey, back when he was still CEO of Twitter, he announced this whole project, right? And what he was starting to talk about was he tweeted about this back then. Hey, let's try to make an internet technology that can run Twitter. Essentially make like what Twitter does a part of the internet itself. And the idea was to get to a point where it's not just one company anymore. It's not monopolized by these companies, but it's actually kind of just a part of the shared infrastructure that we all have. And we'll get into the why later. I'm sure we'll talk more about like what the implications of that is. But so he started it that way. And for a couple of years, it was really just folks hanging out in chat rooms talking about like, okay, how are we going to do this, right? Yeah. So it was one of those, like I was working in the space. I was definitely aware of it at the time. I didn't end up joining in on that, but I knew a lot of the folks that were in there chatting about it. And so after a couple of years, Twitter was starting to think, okay, we should probably like appoint somebody to be like the leader of this project, to make sure they could like find some structure, because it wasn't quite finding its feet yet. So they did a search for somebody to run it, and Jay Graber, the now CEO of Bluesky, she applied and ended up getting the appointment. she ended up getting picked. So then she worked with Twitter to set up like, okay, let's actually make like a company, and let's get the money into it, and let's actually start this as a completely independent company from Twitter, right? Make sure that it's like something that could survive, again, kind of beyond Twitter, which is the whole idea that it's supposed to, we're trying to build a tech that exists beyond individual companies. And yeah, so then we got funded, and that's about the time that things kind of kicked into gear, and that's when I joined. So that was around 2022.
I see. And what is the size of the company nowadays and of the tech team behind it?
Yeah, so if you include the like support team and like all the moderators and stuff, we're somewhere around 40 to 50 at this stage. And then engineers, I think we're around 16 about right now, something around there. Yeah.
Yeah. And how was I mean, I don't know if this is something that you folks were expecting, Brazilians to join so fast, like from one day to another, basically. And how was that? Can you tell us, like, when was the time that what were you doing when you guys realized that? Like, were you working? Were you at home? How was that?
Right. Yeah. Where were you in the moment? We were not expecting this at all. We kind of knew that something there were like some murmurs in the lead up to it of this happening. So I had a couple of conversations like, oh, we might get a few more folks and just kind of take a look at the servers. We were good, right? And yeah, we're good, And even we kind of figured it would definitely cause a burst, but we didn't think it would be this big of a burst at all. And so, and then you asked what it's been like. It's been awesome. It's been really exciting. Like we're super excited. Everybody's been really like fun and like it's a really like a welcoming energy. You know what I mean? Like everybody, it's actually been really, really exciting. It just kind of got everybody pumped about it. And while we're also trying to keep the servers online, right? That's the other thing. And like mercifully, we had enough capacity to handle it. We actually were probably a little bit over provisioned initially, so the system absorbed it pretty well. We had a little bit of service degradation, but stuff that we were able to resolve. It never went like totally down. So that feels pretty good.
Yeah. And Brazilians, when they love something, they are really passionate about it. Like when they really enjoy something, when they are excited about something, they're like, let's love this, let's share, let's
it's awesome. It's like I want to bring that energy to life. Like that's great.
Yeah, you have to take care because you don't want Brazilians hating you as well. Because when they hate that's a problem as well.
Well, I'll try to dodge that.
So we just had a message here from Bruno asking you to send a salve for the Java Bluesky Boletech.
Okay.
A salve, it's like hey.
Oh, like hello.
Yeah, like hello.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So like say hi to the JavaScript, the Bluesky JavaScript community, or is it Java or JavaScript?
Java, but you can say salve. Salve is better.
Salve. All right. So for the Bluesky Java sphere, salve. Say right?
Okay. Yeah. Cool. And go back to Bluesky. What does it make different from other social networks that we have nowadays, Paul?
Oh, okay. I mean, a couple of things. For one, just in terms of what the app feels like, we're definitely trying to make it feel like something that you have. I guess really two things about that. Number one, just a good time as much as possible. Like we really don't like how social media can get as toxic as it does and historically has been. So we're really big on making sure you have lots of ways to kind of like get out of frustrating or adversarial things if you're just not looking for that. So like we just recently put out all these tools where if somebody like quotes you with something mean, which you call the quote dunk, you can actually like just detach it and be like, no, I don't want to be a part of that. Right. Yeah. So we prioritize that a lot, is making sure that it's just not a bad time. And we try to get that kind of worked into everything. So that's like one way that we try to be different. And the other way is that we try to make sure that everybody actually has a lot of kind of control over their experience. So the whole feeds thing, which is probably pretty new for folks, not a lot of apps do it this way. That's like a whole way for anybody to make algorithms that drive your timeline, right? And it's like not even our servers. It runs on other people's servers running those algorithms. So that's kind of a level of like control that we're trying to give people that's much more than usual. And then, because like the algorithms get frustrating, you know what I mean? Like you get into the zone where like it starts pushing stuff that you're not into, and you're like, I'm just stuck with this, and all my friends are here, so it's really frustrating whenever an app starts to really kind of go in a weird direction with the algorithm. So yeah, we're trying to make sure that you can, like, if you like something, you're not going to lose it. It's not going to get, you don't lose that choice. You know what I'm saying? So that's like the big way that they kind of the application itself feels different. And then there's all that technology underneath, which we'll get into in a little bit, which is kind of like trying to change all the big dynamics that happen where these big monopolies kind of show up inside of tech. We're trying to stop that and set it up so that like more than one kind of company can be a part of all of this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense. And I would like to know the protocol that runs behind Bluesky. It's AT or AT that you say?
We usually call it AT.
AT. Okay.
Yeah.
So and what is this protocol, and what does it mean to be a decentralized network?
Yeah. All right. So we're probably going to be unpacking both of those questions over a long period of time. So we'll start with one kind of, and we'll navigate around with it. So at protocol, it's the internet tech that we've made to start Bluesky. So it's what kind of runs behind the scenes for Bluesky. And it is a way, it's like HTTP, it's like email, it's a technology that lots of people can run, so that you have more than one server, more than one like company able to participate in the same thing, and that's also what the whole like decentralization thing is about. This idea that it's not all central, it's not all one thing that runs the whole show, but rather lots of folks that can do it. And practically speaking, what this means is that like other people can build an application that is actually, a lot of our stuff is open source. So you could actually fork the application and all the back end and all the front end and just start running it yourself and take it in a different direction. But you're still part of that same network. You're still able to talk to the Bluesky users.
So if I want to create my own version of Bluesky using the AT protocol, I can do it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And how would I do that? Like, it's probably not that simple, but what would be like the first steps? Is there like a GitHub repository that I can clone and build over it? Like,
so before the Brazilian surge of users, we were working on that, getting all that stuff put together. In fact, today I was working on a new website for that protocol that I was really hoping that I would have ready for this moment. So I'd be like, hey, and we got this new thing. We do have a website. It's @proto.com if you want to go there, but it's about to get a nice refresh. Sadly, I got jammed up on some DNS configuration, so I wasn't able to quite make it in time for you. But yeah, I mean, we're kind of constantly building the technology, building the application, and then like trying to write down what we're doing and how to do it at the same time. So it's a lot of work. So we're gonna try to write down a little bit more, like solidify some of the pieces. It's gonna be a process, but I can tell you that if you're just looking to like make your own client and not like run anything in the back end, that's really easy to find if you go on our GitHub. So if it's GitHub, it's github.com/bluesky-social. It's pretty easy. Just Google it. You'll find actually like the entire React Native application that you can download and start to run locally and just start doing whatever you want. So if you think the thing ought to be in red, you can go ahead and make your own red version of the Bluesky app. It's all right there.
I'm happy with the blue one. And Jessica just sent a super chat asking, telling you to ask Beyonce to create a Bluesky account. Yeah.
I'll get her on the phone right away. No problem.
Call her now. Let's talk to her. So I'm gonna send a message in Portuguese to people here. Okay.
Yeah. Go.
So Para você que está assistindo e não entende inglês, semana que vem eu vou colocar essa entrevista em português aqui, tá? Eu vou colocar ela editada e legendada, beleza? Enquanto isso, se inscreve no canal, deixa o like. Eu sou o Gabs Ferreira, caso você não me conheça, criador de conteúdo há mais de 10 anos de tecnologia aí. Então, fica aí. So, going back to English now. And I would like to know a bit more about your tech stack at Bluesky, Paul. What do you folks use behind the scenes there?
Yeah, love going to the tech stack. We're so primarily I'll try to like do broad and then narrow it in. So like Node.js and Go. That's most of our backend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
TypeScript, always. You need those types. I used to be really hardcore, like, no, JavaScript, I can do this. And now I'm like, no, TypeScript. So yeah. And then let's see here. So database tech, we're using lots of stuff. We're using Redis, of course. We got Postgres in there a couple places. We got SQLite in there, actually, as the primary data store, which is a fun little tidbit that we can get into later. And then we use ScyllaDB, which is like, I think it's a Cassandra variation. It's a real horizontal, scalable key value store.
So that's ScyllaDB you mentioned.
Scylla, yeah.
Yeah, I have a friend that is a developer advocate there. Why did you choose Scylla?
I wasn't involved in that choice, gotta be honest. So I don't know why they made that pick, but they've been real happy with it. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I hear nothing but good.
Cool.
Yeah.
What else?
So that's back end. And then on front end, it's all React Native, TypeScript, and Expo. What we're using on that. Lots of modules kind of mixed up in there. But we use that all for just one code base, which then compiles into web and native iOS and native Android. So that really helps us move pretty fast, because if you're trying to target multiple platforms with more than one code base, you're kind of just writing more than one app. And so React Native and Expo like really saved us in a big way on that and allowed us to move a lot faster. So I'm a big fan. So early on, like I was involved as just a protocol engineer, but once we started to actually make the app, that was my job. I was the one doing the front end side of things. So there's probably more details I can give you about that than I can about the back end. I know the broad strokes, but yeah. So
cool, man. We have a question here from Bluesky that's a super chat. He's asking if the Discover algorithm will be open source at some point.
I actually do not know, to be honest. Maybe, yeah, I don't know. I'll have to talk to the back end and see if they want to open source that. Yeah.
Yeah. Jeff is asking, how did you react when you found out that the main Brazilian TV news program showed their Bluesky handle for people to follow? That was yesterday, right?
Yeah, that was yesterday. I was very excited. Because like that's one of those things where you're always hoping that people are going to do the butterfly down there instead of the other stuff, and you kind of just like you got to be chill about it and hope that like maybe someday. And so to actually see it and not just see like somebody do it, but such a big thing was I texted my family like right away.
Like, what do you know about that show, like that TV?
I had to look it up, right? But the word is that it is one of the biggest news programs in the world.
Yeah, it's like until like, I don't know, maybe 10 to 20 years ago when TV was still the biggest thing before the internet, Global was the main channel here in Brazil, and this news broadcast that goes every day at 8:30 p.m. I guess. Jornal Nacional, it's national news basically. And it's like, I wouldn't say it's the most important news because nowadays things are more decentralized than they used to be in the past, but it's still like a huge, massive like media channel. They're like really big. It's like it's really meaningful to today. It's not just, I feel like it's not just changing. It's like show me a position, it's like showing their side. Right?
Yeah.
Like sending a message.
Well, I guess in some ways I feel kind of honored. It's pretty incredible. I don't know. I guess I have to think about that for a while.
Miguel is asking for you to sing "Shape of You." "Shape of You" is like that Sheeran song, I guess.
Oh.
I don't know. "Shape of You." I don't think he's gonna do that. It's just a joke, obviously.
I get it. I look like Ed Sheeran. I get it.
There are some people asking about your butterfly wings as well.
I do have them.
Oh, you're there?
Are we gonna do this? Are we gonna go full
No,
butterfly?
I don't know. Maybe sing the shape, sing "Shape of You," I guess.
Yeah, since I can't do "Shape of You," I might as well do this. Here we go. All right.
Okay.
This
So
isn't even about the company. I just like to wear butterfly wings. Just kind of a fashion
yeah,
statement.
you work like this all day.
Oh yeah, you gotta. Let's get this right.
Yeah, people were loving it.
Yeah, it's a good look, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
I'm all
yeah,
set.
yeah. So, we have Richie here asking, why did you choose hybrid mobile development? Do you have any problems, benefits? Do you intend to switch to native in the future?
Yeah. So, we get that question a lot actually, because like the big question is, can you make something that feels as good if you're using something like React Native? And when I was walking into it, I was skeptical, to be honest. It was kind of one of those things where the reason we chose to do it is we didn't really have a choice. We knew for sure that you can't just get locked into just doing iOS or just doing Android or just doing web. You really kind of got to meet everybody where they're at these days. So, is this gonna be distracting? This is gonna we're just gonna be able to do it. So
yeah, you decide, man. It's your choice. I mean, if you want to,
you ask me something like really serious after this, so that I could. Yeah. So no. But like, I gotta be honest though. Like, it's come out like so much better than we expected. React Native and Expo, the people that do that are really talented and are really putting in like a lot of hard work to make it to do what you want. They're making some huge performance improvements with this new re-architecture they're doing. So like, it's actually getting to be an even better bet. And like, we could always be improving, but by and large, I've been really happy with the results we've been able to get with that. And so if you're trying to hit more than one platform, like I said before, you want one code base, because if you have more than one code base, it's basically that many products that you're trying to build. And so, yeah, if you're trying to, work well with a budget, which we are, I recommend it.
Enzo is asking if you know what Paulinho means.
Okay.
Paulinho.
Is it kind of like Paulie? Like, it's just kind of like
yeah, like
it's like a
Paulie.
cutesy way to say Paul, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And also, if you did work for DuckDuckGo.
DuckDuckGo. No, I never did. No, nobody. So my previous jobs, which Portuguese do I know now? All right, so like, I'll start with I've learned Fofo. I like Fofo.
Fofo, yeah.
Yeah. And then what other? You wouldn't know any of my other jobs actually. So like, prior to Bluesky, I was doing a bunch of very indie kind of small scale projects that were similar at their goals. So one of them was called Secure Scuttlebutt, which, interesting name for sure. That one was another kind of peer-to-peer social network. That was like way back in like 2014. I was doing that. 2012, 2014 actually. And then I worked on a peer-to-peer web browser for a while called the Beaker browser. The idea there was like, hey, maybe if we could like just host websites off of our own computers, we'd be able to kind of, like we were talking about before we started recording, like go back to websites, you know what I mean? And then like be able to connect to each other that way. And that was all really, really instructive. Like, I learned a whole lot that way. And that fed so directly into what we did with Bluesky, but none of them really worked. You know what I mean? Like, it took a while to make the technology work. So, yeah.
Cool. We have a good question here from Camilo. He's saying that Brazil has a significant problem with fake news. If you do have any plans to implement something like community notes or other methods to combat fake news on the platform?
Yeah. So I'll tell you, we don't know exactly how that's going to look when we do it, but I can tell you what we got so far and what we're thinking about. I do think it's a big deal to like make sure on the internet, like the internet's an information system. Its job is to give you good information. You know what I mean? So I feel like anybody that works on applications on the internet or internet technology, like we should be thinking about how are we making good information systems for people. So it's a question you got to take seriously. The thing that we've done so far is we've introduced, I talked about how you can do your own feeds and your own algorithms earlier. Another thing that we did is we introduced a way to do your own moderation that stacks on top of our moderation. And we call those things labelers, like you're going to label something. And there's a lot of reasons we did that. That's also just so that like if people are, I'll give an example, like people make, there's one labeler that's pretty popular that labels pictures of like screenshots from like Twitter or from Instagram or something like that for folks that are just tired of like seeing screenshots getting dragged in. So they can subscribe to that labeler and just say like, yeah, hide that stuff. I don't want to see that stuff. Or if you're like really arachnophobic, somebody could make like a spider warning and you could just like label it that way and hide it. But the labels are also informational. They don't have to just be like removing.
Yeah.
So you can do things like you can set up a labeler that's actually designed to research what's going viral and then like put something on like, this is probably not true, right? Like misleading, something like that. And then you can actually have fun with it too. Like people made like a D&D like class thing where like you subscribe to it and then you would like a post and then a bot would like assign your class to you randomly. So I became a druid, I think was the one that I got. And then like anybody else that subscribed to it could see druid underneath my name anywhere I posted. So it's almost like Flare, you know what I mean? So there's actually a lot of different kind of fun things you can do with the labelers. We're still like learning exactly how to make all that work because it's a kind of a big system and we got a V2 that we got to be thinking about like, okay, what do we want to do with the next version of it? But that's the answer for how we see that going. And then a community note style thing, I mean, in a really great world, that would be like one of the kinds of labelers out there, right? Yeah. And they cook up whatever their system is for like lots of folks having their voices get mixed into that to kind of get to the best possible kind of annotations on things. So yeah, that's how we think about it. All right, I'll retire.
Yeah, please feel free. So I think I saw one of your posts saying you do not believe in like a place without moderation, without controlling at least a little bit what is going on, because one of the things that people on the other networks say and pray sometimes, it's like free speech and that kind of stuff, but it's sometimes kind of empty. This I don't know. I don't believe much in that. Like, what is your point of view on this kind of thing? Like, no rules, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, you're trying to balance anxieties about lots of different things. You know what I mean? Like the fear is that the moderation is going to go too far and overreach, and that you don't have any way to push back against that. But you also like it's. You work on the moderation side of these things, and you realize just so fast, like, oh man, if you don't have folks helping out to like filter some of this stuff or react to some of the behavior, nobody would bother. There's just such a volume of rough things that are put on the internet. The internet's crazy, you know. Like, don't really want to.
It's got a river of stuff happening all the time. Like
it's a river of humanity. You know what I mean? Like it is a very authentic space in that regard. And so like if you kind of go by the one step at a time, you can. Some folks talk about like, well, let's make it so that everybody can make choices for themselves, and you could take that approach, but then eventually you start thinking, well, why don't we pool together resources to do some moderation here to make it a good experience for everybody? And then eventually you get to the point where like, okay, having people whose job it is to do this is not a bad idea. But the way that we try to square that anxiety you get about like the unaccountable moderation versus like the need for it is to have this decentralized world, right? Where if we're losing people's trust, other people can make an application with its own approach to the moderation, right? And that's how you can kind of make sure there's back pressure on us so that we don't get power crazy. That makes sense?
Yeah.
I don't think anybody wants it just straight up no moderation. I think that's a tough way to live. So
Yeah, yeah, I believe in that as well. Talking about features, Felipe is asking if you can talk a bit about the next update with videos is coming.
Yeah, I would love to tell you when I think it's going to be, but I can't. I
Yeah, he
got
can promise,
yeah,
guys. He can
I
promise.
can't be throwing down promises. But the crew is working really hard on it. If you follow some of the Bluesky devs, you'll see these posts by them where they're just like saying like test, and it looks like there's nothing under it. It's actually videos. They're just posting in their dev builds the videos that you'll see it. It's getting there. It's really close, and they're working really hard to get it there. Yeah, we're really excited about getting that done. It's actually we had been working on it for quite some time prior to all this, and
Yeah.
so the timing kind of worked out. It would have been great if we had like one more week because we'd love to be able to have this for y'all like when you showed up. But we're close.
Yeah. So Lucas, thank you very much for the donation, and he's asking if you're thinking about implementing some way to flag verified accounts, even though there's a domain option, many are not adopting, and we don't know who's real and who's not.
Yeah, we're paying attention to that for sure. Like the domain thing is great. It's a really good start, for sure. But we're also, we're listening to folks and kind of evaluating like, all right, what does this need next? How do we make sure we're going all the way there? So I can't tell you again. There's a couple of things I just can't. I don't want to promise anything that I can't really promise or speak out of pocket, but we're looking at it pretty hard. I'll tell you that.
Vinicius, my great friend, is asking if you're afraid of the memes that are going to appear, maybe with you involved. And well, they're already happening, right? You can't
Yeah,
stop them.
that's a new thing for sure. Yeah, well, it's totally cool. Like, no, I'm not like too worried about it to be sure. And I don't want to suggest no, it's cool, but it's definitely like, look at that. Pictures of me. Look at that. Very new experience.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of people here asking if you're single and this kind of stuff, but
I think I better kind of keep that to myself.
So tech questions. Fabricio is asking what motivated why not using ActivityPub?
Yeah, totally. We really considered using ActivityPub when we first started out. And it's funny to say this, but like the stakes felt kind of different at the time. One thing that like, actually, before I even answer this, there's just a funny thing, which is after working on this stuff in kind of relative obscurity for so long, when you're kicking off a project like this, you're planning ahead like, yeah, people will use this someday, but I don't think maybe if you really ask me, I'm like, yeah, probably not. You know what I mean? Like this will probably be another research project. Maybe it'll happen. Who knows? So like, yeah, there's all those decisions you're making early on where you're like, I think that's a good idea. And then you get to like here and you're like, oh, wow, let's hope I made the right call back then. So yeah, I mean, when we were looking at ActivityPub, there were just some things that we weren't totally in love with about how ActivityPub worked. In fact, there's we talk about this, like there's a little bit of a problem with server migrations that we were worried about, but I don't even think really that's the biggest thing at this stage anymore. The scale is the thing that worries me. Because ActivityPub, the way it works is you have these basically all separate applications that are just talking to each other. So ActivityPub is a way to have servers exchange at the edge between each other, right? So you create your instance, I create my instance. They're totally separate apps. They have their own UIs, stuff like that. And they use this as an exchange between each other. The thing is that if you're trying to create a network like we are, where it feels like one big shared network, where you can have like feeds that have like an algorithm with millions of likes on it, which is where these things get, right? Like lots of activity. And you see a comment section that has like all the best replies from around the world, stuff like that. You end up needing to process pretty much all the network. You have to have that data coming in. And if you have every server, every instance out there speaking to each other horizontally, they're kind of syncing each other's entire databases, right? So you end up having really bad scaling properties as the system starts to get bigger and bigger, and you're trying to give a global view. Now, ActivityPub's goal wasn't communities, and then this is like a permeable boundary between the two, but it's not about having this really big scale. But we were kind of like, well, the big scale is like what's fun about social media. You want to feel like you're a part of a big global network that we're all, shared in. That's what makes it so exciting. So that was kind of like a really big core design difference, in like how we were approaching it. And there was a degree to which when we were looking at ActivityPub, we thought about trying to retrofit it, but it kind of seemed like there wasn't a whole lot of interest in that in the ActivityPub world, especially at the time, and we didn't want to jam them up. You know what I mean? Like they had their own way of doing things. It felt like we would be kind of invading on that. So we figured, all right, we're going to take this other stab with it and try out our ideas over here and just kind of see how it goes. So that's really how that played out and why that happened.
That makes sense. We have a question here that I was planning on doing from Tomas. Is Bluesky a distributed company? Does it hire across the globe or only people based in specific countries?
Oh yeah, we're distributed. We're a remote first company. I'm not going to tell you where folks are because I got to make sure I'm respecting everybody's privacy. But I can tell you, that it's not all U.S. It's around the world.
Cool. Junior is asking about features. Now that we have the like button animation, what about birthday balloons?
There's so many things like that where you're like, what if I just like stayed up all night and just like knocked something out like that? Just put all that fun stuff in there. And then you break the build like 3 times and you start to think, maybe I shouldn't do that. So we'll get to it when we get to it. But we're all pretty busy, so hopefully it won't be too long. We'll see.
There is a question here from Juliana. Most of the memes, images, videos are repeatedly posted in other social media. Do you intend to hash them to avoid repeat uploads of the same medias?
Yeah, that's a super good question. So you can do that. And then the trick is we're in the let's see. I mean, you do the hashing, and then it's where are you using that as an optimization, right? So like, there's a big CDN, on the system. So like, it would make quite a bit of sense for our CDN to do that, and so okay, we can reuse it here. Then you got to do a little bit of bookkeeping if you do that, where you have to pay attention to like maybe the first person that posted it deletes it, but somebody else posts it. Should it get deleted then? So you kind of you want to purge stuff out of the cache when it's not getting used. So you have to track if you do use that kind of like hashing to reduce the amount of repetitive uploads. You also still have to make sure you essentially get into like a memory, like a reference counter kind of situation where you're like tracking how many times it's getting used. And after all that, like you might get a bit of a bandwidth reduction or a storage reduction. The thing though that you also got to ask yourself is how often is the data going to change as people do the re-uploads? Because a really common way for folks to like reuse something like that is like do a screenshot on their phone, which means it's actually going to end up being a different file with a different hash. So you could find yourself not getting as much as you think out of that, because not everybody's like doing a long press or a right click and saving the original file. So I mean, we might look at it at some point, but it's not super high on our list, I'd say.
Samir is saying, congrats to you and the whole team on the amazing work. We've been having a great time. Maybe come to Brazil when you manage to catch a break.
I'll see what I can do. There's not a lot of breaks these days, but fingers crossed.
There's probably going to be for a while, right?
No, not for a bit.
Felipe is asking, how was the traffic during F1 races? I got a lot of fans to comment on Bluesky. I also already 2.3 followers there. Thanks, Paul.
When was the F1 races? Do you know?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not an F1 guy.
I can tell you that like our traffic at this stage, we're still, early on, you know what I'm saying? Like I think we're around 9 million accounts now, which is really exciting, but it's also like, I don't think we're quite at that zone yet where like an event. I take that back. Sometimes really big political events in the US, because we've historically had a pretty large US. That's been like one of our larger user bases. Not anymore, Brazil, you win. But yeah, so it would be like things like that, like big news, something like that would cause a bit of a burst. So, and then now we're just kind of like, seeing this thing. But I'll tell you this, eventually, yes, something like that will definitely do that. Yeah.
And one more question related to Brazil. When are you guys landing a Brazilian office? Rio has a tech hub area to be amazing to have you here. Also, please hire Pachi Parra as a community manager for BR. You won't regret it. Oh, I know Pachi. She's she's a friend.
Oh yeah, right on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually I have no idea. Like,
Yeah.
just to give like some perspective on this, like we're sort of doing our own thing up until this moment, and now we're making sure the servers stay online, and we have not even begun to have like a thought and be like, okay, now we have all these Brazilian folks. What are we doing next? So I don't know. We'll let you know.
Felipe says that he loved the idea of verify users by the bank. In Brazil, this is also validated with CPF number, our social security number. Yeah, I really enjoyed that feature as well.
Interesting. Okay, cool. So I love that you like the domain thing. Yeah, and then like the CPF. I'd have to like find out like what the mechanisms are there. If it's like a social security, like I don't know, like that's kind of, there's a lot of like personal verification stuff happening where you send your driver's license up to things and they'll verify it. It's complicated. Like you got to worry about the security of those databases, and but we'll see. We'll figure it
out. Taito is asking if you use Vim. Are you a Vim user?
Oh, this isn't going to be good. I'm sorry, I don't. I use VS Code and I use Emacs key bindings.
Emacs key bindings.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. And you know what? Before things get out of hand here, let's all remember first of all that we all like each other, and we're all each other. But also, in my defense, Mac OS. I'm also a Mac OS user. I don't know if I lost anybody on that one either, but it has the Emacs key bindings actually like work natively in Mac OS, so it's actually like really convenient to get into that. So yeah.
Yeah. So. João is asking about the multiple storages being used in Bluesky. I think he mentioned SQLite, and I was curious about it.
Yeah. So, okay, I'm going to nerd out about the protocol a little bit to explain how this gets worked in. So, the way to think about the ad protocol and how it works, there's a couple of ways you can think about it. But one way you can is it's like we took a normal data center, like a normal backend for a high-scale social network, and then we turn it into these like what are really microservices. So like primary user storage and where your keys get stored, like your signing keys, like your crypto keys, and then like a event log like Kafka, that like sends events around, sends data, kind of transports it around. And then another one would be like the kind of the big database that like indexes everything, like what you call computed views. So we took like these really kind of traditional things and then turn each of them into roles inside of a protocol, and made it so that you can mix and match these services, these sort of microservices, across organizations. So you can have your primary storage where like your users' data and their keys are getting stored, interacting with the event log by somebody by a totally different company, and then like an application with its big computed views by a totally different company. It's like a giant mix and match sort of thing. And the reason you're able to do that, actually what the AT stands for is authenticated transfer, which is very wonky, but what we're saying is that like everything's signed. We cryptographically sign everything, so you can always be sure that it's authentic. And that allows you to make the security properties work, mixing and matching all these services from different folks. All right, now that I've gotten that out of the way, that part about what I was talking about with where the user keys get stored and the primary data gets stored, we use SQLite inside of those things. So it's essentially every user has their own SQLite database that we're storing the data inside of. And there's like, how many we have? Like, I want to say 20 servers that have all the user data. So there's like a horizontal scaling dynamic going on in there. And we can actually move the users between these servers with their SQLites like really easily. And that's also something the protocol does actually, is move around users between those hosts really easily. And so, so like doing it in SQLite, like it was just kind of like, okay, great. We don't have to, it's in process. So it's actually like it's really just a nice way to interact with the hard drive, and avoid having like more ops. So yeah, that's where we use it. And for what it's worth, your mileage will vary. SQLite is great until it's not. So I'm not saying like knock yourself out with it, but when you find the right use case for it, it's pretty sweet.
Yeah. And Philippe is asking, how do you view competition and how does it feel to surpass Meta in a large market? Do you have any expansion plans to conquer other countries?
Conquer's not the right word. We're here just to hang.
You're not planning to conquer Brazil, right?
No. Yeah, I mean, I guess I try to focus on the positive on this kind of stuff, and definitely one of the things that I consider to be a positive is that these ideas of decentralization are making their way through the world in a bigger way. Again, we started with this goal, right? So you asked me kind of what I think about Threads. They're integrating ActivityPub, which is that other decentralized social networking technology that got mentioned before. I think that's pretty great. You know what I mean? And just that, like, that's moving forward, that bigger goal of getting into a world where it's not, one big monopoly. So yeah, I think it's a nice kind of dynamic that's going on. And that's all I'll say about
that. and what would you say are your main challenges right now from a tech perspective? I imagine it's scaling.
Scaling is a big one. But actually we sort of paid that cost already. Like last year, we did a major re-architecture of our backend to make sure that it could scale. So while that's like an ongoing thing, obviously, that's not our biggest headache really at the moment, which is a lucky place to be. We paid that debt ahead of time. What I would say probably our biggest challenge right now technically is moving forward with the novel technology side of things. So like the protocol work at the same time that we're trying to move fast for the application. Because that slows you down, right? Like sometimes we have to invent entirely new ways from a protocol perspective that's like going to last just to implement a feature. So that means that we're kind of like splitting our focus, jumping between these things and being smart about how we do that and making sure that we're not painting ourselves into corners that's really that's the technical trick. It's rewarding, but boy, it's tough.
Yeah, and when I mentioned on Bluesky that I was going to interview you, there were some Brazilian developers, probably some of them are here right now, that asked how they could somehow help evolve the product. Like, where can they get involved somehow in helping this going forward?
Yeah, first of all, I love that, and and you know what? You probably hear it. My cat's meowing for some fancy food. Do you mind if I just give her some food really quick? Maybe it'll stop.
Sure, but bring her here. Let's...
Well, if I'm going to do this, I'll at least show it for the camera. All right, here she is.
Oh, what's her name?
This is Kit the cat.
Kit the cat. Oh,
yeah.
I love cats. How many do you have?
All right, hang on.
Ele vai dar comida para os gatos, galera. Enquanto isso, queria agradecer a todo mundo que está aqui. Essa é a minha maior live desde sempre nesse canal. Eu já sou criador de conteúdo de tecnologia já faz mais de 10 anos. É a primeira vez que eu tenho mais de 400 pessoas numa live aqui, então se inscreve, dá o like e tudo mais aí. Okay, sorry. What you were saying?
What was I saying? What was I saying? We were talking. You remember me? What we were talking about?
I forgot. We were talking about developers to help the platform. How can people help?
Yeah. Okay. So prior to we got some stuff in the works here to make that question easier to answer, because actually prior to everything popping off like this is what we were working on. We were I just wrapped up working on a new website with some new help docs and stuff like that. We got one of our team members, which some folks may know actually, Dan Abramov, kind of a figure in the React world. He's going to be giving a talk tomorrow. So keep an eye out for that. He's at a React conference in, I forget where, somewhere in the EU. So that's happening. Anyway, so the at proto.com, it's the website. We're about to update it. So you're seeing the old one. But that's going to be a really good kind of starting point for you right there. And then at proto.com, the Bluesky account, right, because it's all connected, we're using those domains. Follow that, and we are going to keep on we'll keep posting stuff as it comes along. But by and large, what we're definitely like trying to like start to get going is like actually having time to not just write everything up, but also to like spend time with devs and get this into that point where like the goal of the ad proto is that it goes beyond our company. You know what I mean? That like it just becomes infrastructure. And so we want to start to really kind of get to that point where like everybody has a sense of ownership of this thing, and that we're just one of the voices inside of it. And we're just kind of getting the ball rolling on that. There's like weekly talks that are starting to happen on Zoom, and we're starting to get to meet each other in person or by Zoom. You know what I mean? So like definitely keep an eye out, because we're gonna keep on sharing stuff and like giving you places to talk to each other and get more involved. Yeah.
Yeah. Anna, it's not a question. I wanted to thank you and the whole team for you and your hard work. You've inspired me to study the subject more.
Right on. Right on. Cool. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And we have a tricky question here from Jessa. What are the main ambitions for Bluesky? Is Bluesky a means or an end to achieve the objectives?
Oh, I would say I'm going to go with, if I got to choose, I'm going to say it's a means, because like the goal is to get the ad protocol being used. And like think of it like this: like companies come and go. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like they just do. MySpace is gone. You know, like I think I heard Orkut might be making a comeback. I don't know. I don't want to promise. Like I
really?
Yeah. Somebody said that maybe somebody's trying to revive it. Don't quote me on that at all. But so like companies come and go, right? And so you got to think kind of longer term, right? About like what's going to happen when that happens, and are people going to be able to have somewhere to go? And that's the whole idea, is that like you create this. When those companies come and go, the internet still kept going. Same idea. We want that protocol to basically become a part of the internet, so that whenever that happens, it's actually not a catastrophic loss. You can actually just kind of take your account somewhere else.
Yeah. Felipe is asking about challenges, and did Brazilians' massive adoption change your perspective about something on the product?
Ooh.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Definitely. So I'll come back to the greatest challenge. In terms of changing our perspective, probably we had been talking about trying to figure out how to do trending topics, but I think it got bumped in the priority queue a bit. Which, by the way, if you look at my account, I've reposted. There's a developer in the community that made a browser extension to add trending topics. I just want to give a shout out to that, because I love that. When folks get ahead of us like that, like it actually kind of happens like all the time. Like we'll be working on something and somebody else will see that we're doing it, and they'll just implement it in their client first. It's like, oh, okay, cool. So check that out if you're into using browser extensions. You can get your trending topics already. I bet there's actually some other clients that have their own version of it too. So anyway, yeah. So that one, like, we kind of realized, like, okay, we better figure out how we're going to do that. And then biggest challenge, I think it's just getting stuff to you at the speed that the folks care. You know what I mean? Like we want to make sure that we're keeping the pace up. Yeah.
Yeah, being completely honest with you, I don't miss trending topics. To me, it was something that I didn't use. I mean, I don't know. I like the way it is now. You're obviously going to add more features, but the way it is now, I would maybe add videos.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Maybe we could keep it simple. I don't know.
Well,
I know that's not what's going to happen.
No, yeah, I do think I am sort of curious if there's a way to do a little bit better at trending topics, because I don't know. Maybe there's actually something interesting that we could do there to make it work a little bit better. But at any rate, I agree about the video. We're locked in for sure on that. So.
Yeah, and Tomas is asking about videos. What's the greatest challenges with videos? Are they stored in the user's PDS?
They are. All of your data is stored in your PDS.
What is PDS? I don't know what that means.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's your personal data server.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's the thing that stores your data and your keys and so your videos. Yeah, the protocol side of that stuff wasn't too bad actually, because we. All right, the cat's just. I'm sorry about you're just going to.
Yeah, it's fine. We can listen. We can listen to her.
She wants to join in. Yeah, so like the protocol side of that didn't end up being that bad. We kind of figured out how to get that handled. I'll tell you what really is tricky with video is moderation infrastructure. You got to be real careful about people uploading some pretty disturbing stuff, and getting out there faster than your mods can see it. So you got to take that seriously. So that's where there's always like there's that kind of energy like, oh, I could implement Twitter in a weekend kind of thing. And it's like, well, you can, but then you remember you got stuff like the moderation side of it, and you realize like, oh, actually, this all takes like 2 times longer than you thought because it's stuff like that. And that's what it is for video.
We have a super technical question from Jeff. Are you the type who works listening to music? If so, what do you usually listen to? And if you know any Brazilian artists?
Okay. Well, I'll start at the end there. I just recently was told about Anita. So I've been learning. Started listening to Anita for the first time. I do listen to music while I work. Most of it is electro of some kind, like Feed Me or Deadmau5 or Zed, real classic stuff. You know what I mean?
But by the way, I don't remember if I asked where you're living now. You are.
Sorry, I don't. Yeah, I don't want to.
I don't want to talk about it. Okay. Yeah. No. You're right. I'm sorry. This is the kind of thing that when you work for this kind of product, it's very different, right? It's like especially in the moment that you are right now, where there's like hundreds of thousands of people talking to you, and yeah.
It's a new thing, and like I've always been a sharer, up until this moment. Yeah, I would have been like, oh yeah, totally, I'm wearing a blank, but nah, I got it. Things change.
Okay. Philip is asking if you think that moderation will be more challenging in a network based on an open protocol, given not everyone has or have even built.
People should have.
Yeah.
That's so Felipe knows some insides of how this works for sure. I don't think necessarily it's actually any more challenging in this situation. The applications end up being kind of the anchor point by which moderation happens, because they're aggregating from all the data around the internet or around what we call the atmosphere, right? Like all the ad protocol. But then they get to choose what they're actually going to put into their application, so they can apply filtering before they do that. And frankly, that's not that different from what any other company is up against. You know what I mean? Whenever they're running a social network. So I would not say that it gets like inherently more difficult. It's kind of, I think, about same sized. The CSAM part of it is a very real thing. I think you can still deal with that by there are services out there that will. So for folks that don't know, CSAM has to do with it stands for child sexual abuse material, and it's something that you take very seriously. There are databases that maintain fingerprints of known CSAM imagery that you want to check against to make sure that you're catching it as quickly as you can. And you got to be careful with that database, because that in and of itself could be used to help people locate it. So it's not made widely available to folks. And so, there are services out there that you could trust to hold on to that, and then you send them the image and say like, are we good? And then, so again, really all that, it doesn't change that much compared to the kind of the standard state of the art.
Okay, Paul, so we are running out of time. Let's get one last question here from Luis. He's asking, how extensible is the AD Proto? Do you see a future where diverse kind of applications use it?
So it is very extensible. I definitely see a future where there's a diverse kinds of applications using it. That's what we were aiming for when we made it. There's definitely some things that are easier to build on it than others. And I'll tell you right now, we're, like I said, we're starting to invest a lot more in making, on the tooling, the developer experience, and the information that's out there. So I would, if you're interested in it, you got to choose your level of like bleeding edge kind of nonsense you want to deal with. You know what I mean? If you're the sort of person that loves to dive into something that's like in a work in progress state, then by all means do so. We got lots of folks that are doing that already. But if you're kind of just like interested in general, I would definitely say like, all right, you like hang back a little bit, pay attention, watch how it goes, and eventually it'll get more and more obvious how you do that. But so like definitely there's social networking use cases are real straightforward and like obvious to do with this thing. Also, like you can use it as the ad protocol is a nice kind of trampoline for something, because like we're rolling out OAuth, which makes it really easy to sign in to an application that way. And then if you wanted to do something like video chats off of it, you don't have to use the rest of the protocol for that. You just get the sign in done using the profile. And that's nice, because then you're not having to like maintain your own, like register account flow. You don't have to have your own user database. Like you just do the OAuth flow and get handed the user information. So yeah. And then for extensibility, yeah, we built the entire thing with this whole, we were definitely looking forward to like, yeah, eventually people are going to have different kinds of data they're going to put into the network. We want to make sure there's really good tools for like describing that data that you're putting in there that you don't feel too bad to use. That's a system called Lexicon. And yeah, so like it's meant to evolve and evolve out of our hands. So yeah, very sensible.
Okay, Paul, I'm going to let you go. I could stay like at least a couple more hours here talking to you, but I'm going to let you go. And I'd like to thank you very much for your time, for coming here and chatting with us. And I don't know, is there anything else you want to say to the Brazilian audience, the people here, and Brazil in general?
Yeah, just welcome. We love having you. I hope you have a great time. We all came to Bluesky.
Yeah, okay, man. Thank you very much for your time, and congrats on the work. I know it's got to be like really challenging. I have no idea what you guys are doing now, how much you're working, and I have to say that I'm really enjoying Bluesky, and I wish it becomes what you expect it to be. And I'm very happy with what I'm seeing now, especially from the content side. And I'm happy with your decisions and your mindset about moderation and all those things that we talked here. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I'm going to say a bit more here with folks in the chat, but I'm going to let you go, and I'll see you in Bluesky.
All right. Well, have a good one. See you on Bluesky.
Have a great day, man. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
E aí, galera? O que vocês acharam da conversa com o Paul? Foi legal? Foi bacana? Conseguiram entender o que ele falou? Ele fala rápido, né? Ele tem um sotaque bem texano ali mesmo, né? Um sotaque bem, né, rápido ali. Para quem não está tão acostumado, pode ser um pouco difícil de entender. Mas... é verdade, Paulinho. Desculpa, gente. Não é Paul, é Paulinho. Mas ele é bem gente boa, né? Ele é um cara bem legal, assim, tá super empolgado com o produto. Eu acho que eu não consigo nem imaginar a dificuldade que eles devem estar tendo para lidar com o tanto de gente que entrou nesses dias, né? Eles são, não sei, eu imagino que desde o começo eles devem ter pensado numa infraestrutura no back-end para suportar, né, essa escalar bastante, né? O throughput deles deve ter aumentado demais. Olha só, para quem tá aqui pela primeira vez, só queria reforçar uma coisa, gente. Se inscreve no meu canal aí, tá? Escuta meu podcast depois, o link tá aí no chat, link tá aqui na descrição. Eu faço meu podcast praticamente sozinho, já faz bastante tempo. E eu fico muito feliz quando pessoas novas chegam aqui e consomem aí o meu conteúdo. Sobre funcionalidades, vocês ficaram perguntando muitas coisas sobre a parada do que vai vir, o que vai fazer, né? Quando que sai tal funcionalidade, quando que vai lançar itens salvos, quando que vai lançar conta privada. E eu evitei ficar perguntando muito isso para ele, porque no começo ali, quando a gente, antes de entrar, ele falou que ele não pode falar muito sobre as features que vão sair, né? Ele não pode falar porque Primeiro porque algumas coisas é meio que segredo mesmo, né? E outra porque quando você desenvolve um produto público, assim, você não pode fazer uma promessa, né? Porque quando você faz a promessa publicamente aqui no canal, as pessoas vão cobrar, né? As pessoas vão ficar, pô, e a feature e tal, então é difícil, é muita coisa que... E a gente sabe como brasileiro é, né, gente? Cá entre nós, né? Você promete uma coisa pra galera, a galera vai lá e vai pegar no pé do cara depois para ele lançar. Então é isso. Por isso que eu não fiquei perguntando muito isso. E outra coisa que ele falou que ele não podia falar muito também é a questão de grana, tá? Tipo assim, como que eles fazem grana, como que eles planejam fazer grana, porque ele falou que ele não está diretamente envolvido hoje nessas decisões. Então, tipo, como que a plataforma vai ganhar dinheiro, né? Como que a plataforma vai fazer grana? Ele não sabe direito e ele não está envolvido. E sobre Elon Musk e sobre polêmicas, né? Também é o tipo de coisa que eu confesso que eu queria perguntar, tá? Queria saber de que ele acha do Elon Musk. Eu até, em off, eu perguntei para ele, eu falei, pô, o Elon Musk lá, você, né? E ele falou, cara, nem posso falar disso, nem em off. É tipo, assunto que, sabe, não posso falar, entendeu? Então são coisas que, por mais que a gente goste da fofoca, né? Gosta de ver o circo pegar fogo, o cabaré pegar fogo, é, não dá para ficar perguntando essas coisas. Teve alguém que mandou um super chat aí, perguntando do Elon Musk, perguntando se ele venderia o Bluesky pelo Elon Musk. Ah, pô, gente, não dá, né? Acabei de conhecer o cara e eu vou ficar mandando essas perguntas aí para ele. O Kiko dos Foguetes. Não vou, não dá. Queria, mas não dá, tá? Realmente não dá. Eu vou tentar ver se eu consigo uma entrevista com a CEO em breve, talvez estar com os desenvolvedores do time, para a gente falar um pouco mais de coisas técnicas. Inclusive, para você que está aqui, eu vi uma galera falando. Que perguntas são essas? Vamos falar de coisa leve. Gente, meu canal é de tecnologia, tá? O meu canal, apesar de a gente falar de as coisas mais leves aqui e tal, que eu falo de tecnologia sobre perspectiva humana, meu canal é de tecnologia, tá? Então é por isso que a gente falou de tecnologia aqui. Óbvio que a gente deu uma brincada ali, falou de outras coisas, mas a ideia era falar sobre a perspectiva tech, né? Falar do CTO. É, o Lucas está perguntando se não rola uma entrevista com algum dev back-end. Eu acredito que sim. Eu acredito que a gente consegue trazer. Acho que essa conversa com ele deve ter aberto portas lá dentro, né? Eu não sei. Acho que ele não deu entrevista para nenhum outro veículo brasileiro aí, né? Mas eu fiquei animado quando ele respondeu super rápido sobre participar daqui. Eu não achei que fosse rolar de verdade. Mas foi muito legal mesmo. Eu queria aproveitar e dar um recado para vocês aqui, que falar uma coisa meio nada a ver com isso que a gente está falando aqui agora, mas semana que vem eu vou estar numa viagem maluca para Lituânia. E quem quiser acompanhar, eu estou indo para conhecer a área de tecnologia deles lá. Me segue lá no Instagram, tá? Que vai ser o lugar que eu vou postar mais coisas sobre a Lituânia. Eu vou passar uma semana na cidade de Vilnius, que é a capital lá da Lituânia, e eu vou postar muita coisa no Instagram. O link tá aí no chat, tá? E assim, foi uma coisa muito maluca. Eu fui convidado pelo governo da Lituânia para estar lá. Olha, chique, né, gente? Chique. Isso eu nunca imaginava, nunca imaginei que isso fosse acontecer comigo. Mas eu vou lá e vou postar muita coisa, tá? O link do Instagram tá aí no chat. Gente, tô vendo todos os comentários de vocês, beleza? Eles não estão aparecendo aqui na tela e vai ser meio difícil eu responder todos, mas enfim. Sobre esse rolê da Lituânia, eu vou na terça-feira que vem, então terça-feira tô embarcando e eu vou passar uma semana lá, vou conhecer a área de tecnologia deles lá, vou em um monte de evento, vou gravar um monte de conteúdo e vai ser legal, vai ser legal. Tô muito empolgado, gente, tô muito empolgado. A única coisa ruim é que é longe pra caramba, né? O voo é tipo, sei lá, 11 horas até a Alemanha, depois mais um voo até lá, e aí tem o fuso de 6 horas. 6 horas. Ó, o William tá perguntando aqui qual que é o foco do meu canal. Vamos lá, William. Cara, ó, vou dar um resumo para você do que eu tento fazer aqui no meu canal. Sendo bem sincero com você, eu geralmente costumo fazer o que eu quero fazer. Eu tenho uma linha muito pessoal, assim, de conteúdo. Meu canal principal hoje acaba nem sendo o canal do YouTube, é o podcast. Eu tenho um podcast chamado Olá Gabs, eu publico ele aqui também no YouTube. Mas aqui no YouTube eu tô com uma linha de conteúdo de um quadro chamado Gabs por aí, que é onde eu meio que vou para lugares entrevistando pessoas. Eu quero fazer um misto de vlog com entrevista técnica, sabe? Inclusive, eu já tenho alguns vídeos aqui no canal desse quadro Gabs por aí que eu coloquei algumas entrevistas da minha última viagem para a Estônia. Eu trabalhei um ano para uma empresa da Estônia e eu fui para lá 3 vezes. Vou gravar muito conteúdo sobre isso nessa viagem para a Lituânia, mas o foco o meu conteúdo no geral, ele está espalhado em vários lugares, mais no podcast aqui no YouTube, mas eu tento falar sobre tecnologia mais da perspectiva humana, focar menos na parte muito técnica pesada, falar de pessoas, de histórias. O meu podcast ele tem um viés bem de contar história, de entrevistar pessoas e falar da vida delas, sabe? E aí tem episódio lá que eu faço tem participação da minha avó, da minha filha, da minha esposa. Eu sigo uma linha muito, muito pessoal mesmo. Eu nunca foquei muito em número, tá? Em crescer. Como eu disse há pouco tempo atrás, aí eu faço conteúdo já faz mais de 10 anos e eu sempre faço o que eu quero fazer, sendo bem sincero. Felipe, obrigado aí por estar aqui, pela entrevista, né, mandar pergunta, por participar. Valeu mesmo, tá, cara? Robson, ele não falou como buscar as pagas, foi uma pergunta que a gente evitou porque ele não sabe ainda. Eles têm investimento e tudo mais. O Leandro tá perguntando que tags eles usam. Cara, basicamente JavaScript Go, tá? Node e por aí vai. Mas eu vou editar essa entrevista, tá? E eu vou postar ela talvez semana que vem já com legenda e tudo mais. Fernando pedindo perdão pela pergunta do Elon. Nem vi que tinha sido você, mano. Passou ali, eu falei, vixe, vou deixar essa passar, só para ele não ficar sem graça aqui. Tá perdoado, mano. Obrigado aí eles usam SQLite, é verdade, Edward. E eles usam ScyllaDB também. Eles usam ScyllaDB. Fernando Gouveia tá perguntando se eu chamei o Paulinho para um churras. Ainda eu não chamei, porque ele nem quis falar onde ele mora. Ele tá meio acho que preocupado com a privacidade. Gente, na moral, imagina um monte de brasileiro maluco marcando ele, fazendo meme o tempo inteiro, chamando ele de pai, um monte de gente falando que quer pegar ele, perguntando se ele tá solteiro. Cara, é foda, né? Pra uma pessoa, entre aspas, normal, que nem é muito de rede social, pelo jeito ele não é um cara que, nossa, é um cara que tá ali o tempo inteiro, né? É, é foda. A enxurrada de milhares de brasileiros. Gente, é foda, é foda. O Felipe tá falando, imagina quando a CEO aparecer por aqui. Vamos ver, vamos ser bonzinho com ela, tá, gente? Vamos ser bonzinho, vamos de boa com a galera. Bem, aparentemente vocês gostaram bastante desse tipo de entrevista em inglês com uma pessoa, né, de uma rede social grande. Então, assim, além da galera do Bluesky, aceito sugestões de outras, entre aspas, celebridades de tecnologia para eu chamar para entrevistar em inglês aqui. Parece que o formato funcionou. Eu nunca tinha. Aliás, eu já fiz entrevistas em inglês, tem entrevistas em inglês aqui no canal, é, mas, mas nunca ao vivo, nunca desse jeito. Então, acho que funcionou. O Fernando vai chamar o Elon Musk. Vou, vou chamar, certeza que ele vai vir. Ele vai vir aqui com certeza. A gente anuncia no Blue Sky, né? E marca ele lá, né? Com certeza. Vou chamar. Ai, meu Deus do céu. O Júnior falou do Dan Abramov. Pô, o Dan Abramov seria legal mesmo, viu? Ele é um cara que eu sigo há bastante tempo e eu sei que ele tá lá agora no Blue Sky, né? Não sei se ele foi o criador do React, mas ele é um da galera do Core, né? É, ele tá lá já faz um tempinho. É, Quem mais que eu chamo, gente? Deixa eu ver o que vocês estão mandando aí. O Alexandre de Moraes. Vou chamar. Vou chamar o Lula. Chamar o cu. Ai, meu Deus. Vai ficar gravado? Fica gravado sim, Luiz. Eu vou tentar editar essa entrevista para semana que vem, beleza? Ah, o Dan não criou o React, ele criou o Redux. Boa, boa. Jordan Walk. Boa, boa. Caramba, gente, tô muito feliz com a interação de vocês aqui hoje. Como eu disse, né, eu nunca tive uma live tão bombada assim. Foi muito legal. Obrigado mesmo aí pela participação de vocês, tá? De verdade. Eu falei que eu sou criador de conteúdo, mas eu trabalho também, tá? Eu tenho um emprego, beleza? Para quem não conhece, só falar um pouco do meu trabalho. Eu trabalho em uma empresa chamada Meet Your Software, que tem um framework JavaScript chamado Meteor.js. Sim, ele está vivo. E eu tô lá faz pouco mais de 3 meses agora. Sou Developer Advocate lá. Eu gosto. O Tati tinha perguntado aqui, né? Fora criar conteúdo, você trabalha. Eu trabalho lá no Meteor e meu trabalho lá é basicamente espalhar a palavra do Meteor, né? Fazer live, fazer evento, fazer live coding e por aí vai. A gente tem um serviço de cloud chamado Galaxy. Inclusive, tem alguém que trabalha com MongoDB aí, a gente acabou de lançar uma opção de hosting com MongoDB lá e o preço tá, ó, show, hein? Vou mandar para vocês aqui, ó, quem quiser dar uma olhada. Vamos ajudar a firma a se manter aí, galera. A gente tá precisando de clientes, tá? Estão precisando de. E o nosso produto é bom, hein? O preço tá chuchu, beleza, ó. Vou mandar o link aqui para vocês, para quem quiser dar uma olhada aí na nossa opção de MongoDB, do Galaxy Hosting, MongoDB. Não é publi, não, mano. Não é publi, não. Paga minhas contas. É meu salário. Não é publi, não. A publi eu faço lá no meu podcast, só da Husky que patrocina meu podcast. Mas aqui é vestir a camisa da firma mesmo. É, Érica falou para eu entrevistar mais alguém desse protocolo AT. É, boa, vamos ver, vamos ver. O Vitor, você que estava traduzindo aí para a galera durante a live, cara, pô, obrigado aí por isso, viu? Muito legal mesmo. Conheci me escrever aqui, código não é minha área, sou mais de UI e UX, mas me interessa sobre o assunto. Pô, cara, vai ver meu podcast. Meu podcast é um podcast de tecnologia, só que qualquer pessoa consegue ouvir, beleza? É muito focado mais nas pessoas do que na parte mais hard de tech. Link tá aí no chat, tá na descrição. Olá, Gabs. André tá me perguntando quais as vantagens do Meteor. Cara, a grande vantagem do Meteor é produtividade, cara. Você consegue ser muito produtivo com o Meteor, muito rápido, ele já vem com reatividade nativa. Então, sei lá, uma aplicação tipo chat, né? Já vem meio que nativo ali. Você consegue fazer um chat muito fácil, muito rápido. E só sabendo JavaScript, você consegue pegar Meteor muito rápido. Quem programa em Meteor, quem tem projetos Meteor, não precisa contratar programadores Meteor. Qualquer um que saiba JavaScript ou TypeScript consegue trabalhar tranquilamente. Tranquilamente. O que mais vocês estão falando de legal aí? Deixa eu ver aqui. Guilherme falando que vai ouvir o podcast, está em transição de carreira e está sendo um pouco mais complicado do que esperava. Pô, cara, transição de carreira é um processo que pode ser complicado mesmo, né? Principalmente se você tem um trabalho hoje que você já ganha relativamente bem e tem que começar meio que do zero, entre muitas aspas aí, né? E o mercado hoje, ele tá um pouco... Nunca foi fácil para quem está começando, né? Para quem está em busca da primeira oportunidade, mas hoje parece que está um pouquinho mais difícil. Mas isso vem de layoff, né? O momento que a gente teve aí no ano passado e antes, essa desaceleração que a gente passou no mercado um pouquinho. Mas, cara, continua firme e forte aí. Glaucia tá falando que achava vocês estudando lá no Blue. Coloca a arrobinha de vocês aí, galera. Acho que colocar a arrobinha dá, né? Link não dá, mas a arrobinha. Eu acho que dá, não dá não? Eu acredito que dê. Eu acredito que dê para colocar a Robinha aí, ó. A Robinha, boa. O Felipe tá falando que tem 16 anos, tá sentindo bem complicado. Só lembro disso na crise de 2015. Caramba, Felipe, você tem 16 anos e lembra da crise de 2015? Ou 16 anos de experiência? Acho que é 16 anos de experiência, né? Deve ser. Porque não acho que você tava pensando em crise quando você tinha 11 anos, né? É... 16 em cada perna dele. Tô quase 80 já. Minha frequência de vídeos, Felipe. Então, cara, toda semana eu posto o episódio do meu podcast aqui, tá? Que não é vídeo. Alguns são em vídeo. Eu quero ser mais frequente aqui com vídeo, mas ultimamente eu não tenho sido muito, sendo bem sincero. Mas tem bastante coisa aí, tá? Tem bastante coisa aí, tem bastante conteúdo aí. O podcast é toda semana, tá? Toda quarta-feira. A gente. 16 só de crise. 16 de contribuição para FGTS, pô, gente. 16 CNH. Caralho, os caras foda. Ai, ai. Ai, ai. Bom, gente, eu vou fechar aqui. Eu quero mais uma vez agradecer a vocês aí, a presença, todo o engajamento, todo o carinho de vocês. Foi muito, muito bacana, além de, né, de ter tido a oportunidade de conversar com o Paul. A companhia de vocês aqui foi ótima, tá? Obrigado mesmo de coração. E eu vejo vocês em breve, né? Boa noite aí para todos, boa noite para todas. Eu vejo vocês em breve, vejo vocês no Bluesky e nas outras redes. Como o Marcelo tá falando aí, Marcelo, obrigado. Deixa o like, se inscreve. Essa coisa toda aí que todo mundo já sabe, né, gente? Um beijo no coração de vocês. Tchau.